Hi, I'm Joe Lewkowicz. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty. Today is August 10th. It's a Thursday, and we do our real estate market update the second Thursday of every month. So just to give you a market preview, here's what's happening in the market today up in Northwest Tampa, and for that matter, the whole Tampa area. With August coming, schools just started today. The market will begin to start to imperceptibly slow up a little bit. There's still a lot of sales being made. What I'm finding is houses that are in absolutely mint condition are selling quickly and for top dollar. The ones that really need a lot of work, the buyers are being very picky. And one of the reasons for that is that prices have gone up so much, even since the beginning of the year, where some areas have had appreciations of 10, 12% since January. Most of the area has averaged 6 to 7% since January, which means take on a $300,000 house that was $300,000 in December, January. You're now looking at it being about $325,000. What that means is that buyers looking at houses are kind of maxed out for what they can afford. They don't have enough extra cash to fix the houses up. So they're buying houses that are in great shape. Maybe they'll pay a little bit more, but they can go in and not have to do any work. The ones that I've been showing where people go, I have to do, $25,000 worth of work, and unfortunately out of their mouths come $50,000, they kind of back off from that and the prices are a little bit lower. However, I listed a house last week in a neighborhood called Belmead. It's on Vanderbilt, was in really, really good shape, listed it for $450,000, which we thought would be a little bit high. It's already under contract as of Tuesday, took 5 days to sell. Had a couple of offers on it, and people buying it are really happy about it. So again, if you price it right, market it well, stage it well, it's going to move quickly, and that's going to be the key for the market. So this is the portion of the program looking for people to ask me questions, what's happening in the market. Maybe I can help you, give you some answers on that. Oh, okay, so first question just came in. In your honest opinion, is it worth investing in real estate in Tampa at the moment? Investing in real estate to make money, you can do it as flipping a home, you can do it as buying rental property, you can buy it, just for buying proper long-term land, holding it. All of them are generally good investments. If you're going to buy rental property, it is like having another job. You have to be aware of how much work it's going to take to, people calling you in the middle of the night. You may want to hire a property manager. You just have to run the numbers. One of the things that I talked with one of my houses that I had for sale, that the guy was going, I'm not getting enough money. And I said, well, you're going to need to lower the price to this. He said, well, I'm thinking of renting it. Now, it's a $500,000 house. The problem is when you run the numbers with the maintenance and everything, it's going to be a money-losing proposition. The houses that make the most money, if you can buy them for $200,000, $250,000, that's probably going to be where money goes up. Now, with that said, one of the axioms of real estate is location, location, location. People have probably heard that statement before. South Tampa, if you can buy a house right, you're going to be in really good shape and the market's going to appreciate. If you go to the rural parts, it has less of a market. Excuse me, less of a market, and it may take longer to sell. But everything on real estate from an investment point of view is how you bought the house. Now, if you're going to live in the home, it doesn't matter quite as much. You really need to buy where you want to live. Just buy the best value that you can and buy it for the right reasons. So any other questions? Okay, as a realtor, what is your current list to price ratio? And I have this question asked of me a lot when I go on listing presentations. Across the board in the last 6 months, I've sold 45 listings. And of those, because I just had this presentation 2 days ago where this question was asked, so I looked it up, 2.69% from list to price. Okay, now that is from final list price to final sales price. Remember, a lot of people, maybe you had your house listed for $400,000, you lowered it to $375,000 and it sold for $365,000. It would be from the $375,000 to the $365,000. I also looked at a lot of my houses as to where were we priced originally, and out of those 45, I only had I believe it was 8 that we reduced the price before we got a contract on them. So again, marketing it well, pricing it right to begin with is really important to the sale. How long are homes taking to sell right now? And we want to be moved by December 1st. Is that a possibility? Okay, so backing it off, right now, like the one that I had in Belmead, you know, we put it on a Thursday, we sold it by Monday. That doesn't always happen, but my median time or average time for sale of all those 45 homes was 29 days. And that included from 200,000 to 900,000. So pretty, you know, pretty broad market area. Generally, the more expensive the house, the longer it can take to sell. But figure that the biggest question that people ask when they're looking at a house, aside from, they already know what price range they're looking at. They go, how long has it been on the market? So you want to price it right. You want to market it aggressively so it gets sold within a 30-day time frame, maybe no more than 60 days. And as we're coming into August, September, you're looking at things possibly taking a little longer, even if they're priced well. Okay, you want to avoid getting into that October, November, December time frame because the market really does start to slow up. So if you put your house on the market, let's call it by August 15th or by the end of August, you probably ought to have a contract on it by October 15th. You're looking at closings are taking anywhere from 30 to 45 to no more than 60 days to close. Mortgage companies are still jammed up. Appraisers are jammed up right now. There's been a lot of activity. Getting home inspections are jammed up. So things right now today are taking, you really got to figure it's going to take 45 days to get closed. It's going to be at least 3 weeks before you know that pretty much everything is all set to go and you can move forward. So if you put the house on the market now, again, it's August 10th, let's call it August 15th. You're looking at selling in 30 days. That's September 15th, the 45-day close. It'd be November 1st, and you'd be out of here. Okay, so don't wait too long. Now is the time. If you have this on in the market in December, as I'd said, January, you're probably looking at 60 to 90 days to get it sold, and you really got to be aggressive on price because there's more people buying at this time of year. We received an offer from our house. What does escrow money mean and who gets that? That is a great question. People buy a house. Let's say that you're buying a house for $300,000 and somebody's getting a VA loan, for example. They can buy a house with no money down. A lot of people want to put the least amount of escrow deposit down that they can. Escrow deposit, it means it gets held with a title company. It gets held with a real estate company. It's held as part of the down payment, waiting to close. And if for some reason the buyer gets qualified for the loan, they pass their home inspection, they decide not to buy the house, they're going to lose that. They're going to lose that escrow deposit. The more escrow deposits you can get, the better off you're going to be. A lot of buyers in our market have been trained through the years when the market was not good to not putting much in the way of escrow down. I've had people come in and say, I want to have an escrow deposit of $500. I had an offer late last night. House is $600,000 plus. Guy only wanted to put a $5,000 deposit down. And we're okay with that. But after the home inspection period, we want a big additional deposit, especially because now if it's a cash offer, there's no good way. People give us proof of funds. They tell us they can get the loan. We want people to be on track. So we want to have enough deposit to make it work. At the same time, you really want to sell the house. So you have to kind of watch there. Now, escrow deposits get released to the seller if the buyer defaults on purchasing the property. That means they have to get qualified for the loan and they've got to get past the home inspection. If they get denied a loan and they've done it before the loan approval period, they're going to get their money back. Okay, you will not be able to keep that, and a lot of people don't understand that. So in other words, you just sold your house for $300,000. They put a $3,000 or a $10,000 escrow deposit down. They don't get the loan. They get their money back, and your house is not sold. So you really need to do a lot of pre-qualifying first. And for that matter, there can be circumstances where they get their money back afterwards, or they can fight it And that's one of those where you really need to talk to a really good real estate professional to give you an idea what are the causes, what are the effects of that, and what's it mean for selling my property. See if we got another question. Okay, if the buyer does not get their loan, do we keep their deposit, and how hard is it to collect that? Well, we kind of went over that just a little bit, but if it's held with a real estate company, the Florida, and there's a dispute on the deposit, buyer wants it, seller wants it, a real estate company who's holding it in escrow sends it to the Florida Real Estate Commission. It's called FREC, and the Florida Real Estate Commission will will ask questions, and they'll make a determination as to who gets the deposit back. It can take, I've seen it take 90 days. If it's held by a title company, if there's a clause in there that says the deposits are non-refundable, it's a lot easier for the title company to release it. If it's not in the contract and both parties dispute it, it's liable to have to go to mediation. And if it doesn't go to mediation, they send it to the state to make a determination on that. Again, you could be talking about a 30 to 60-day process. It's always better to get the houses closed, but the bigger deposits, the more inclined everybody is to make things work out. Any other questions? Okay, are there any neighborhoods in Tampa area that stand out among the rest in terms of value? That's one of those variables. If you buy a house right, the value is going to be there. The areas that have been doing really well have been South Tampa, which is south of Kennedy, Palmacy area, Hyde Park. Seminole Heights has been coming up very strongly. You know, older houses selling, people, the area is being rejuvenated. I've seen prices for houses that a few years ago wouldn't have brought anything are really doing well. Downtown St. Pete is blistering. You're looking at condos that would have sold for $800,000 5 years ago are bringing $1.6 million now. So in the Northwest Tampa area, original Carrollwood, people love living there. They like the parks, they like the sidewalks, they like the streets. It's holding up its value really well. Carrollwood Village is doing really well. West Chase is doing really well. But you can get a better value in a lot of other areas. A lot of people go for the school systems that Cheval, Villa Rosa have, which is Steinbrenner High School, which is, you know, right now seems to be one of the most popular. But Gaither's good, Alonzo's good. You know, so it just depends on if a comparative house in, say, Old Carrollwood is $400,000 and you can get the same thing for $350 someplace else, you're going to do just as well. So if a buyer cannot get insurance for a house, does this mean they cannot get a loan? And we encourage everybody to start on insurance immediately. A lot of the houses that are 30, 40 years old, for that matter, once they're 20 years old, many of them have to go through what's called a 4-point inspection. They check air conditioner, they check electrical, they check plumbing, and they check the roof. The insurance companies want to see that that has a clear report, and the insurance company of choice for the buyer may not give them the insurance that they want. But that doesn't mean they can't get insurance. Let's say that they're buying a $300,000 house and their policy might be $2,000. They can get a policy for $2,500 and get the things fixed later. So it's not necessarily a reason for not getting the loan. It just means, now it can be if it's written in the contract that they can't get insurance at a certain amount. And again, these are the questions to ask a really good real estate agent, because these are all the contractual questions that come up. But I would work on getting your insurance immediately. Once the home inspection's done, start working on getting your insurance. So, and that'll make life go easier. If a buyer asks to do repairs on a home before closing, are we obligated to do these? There's a couple kinds of contracts. Some are written as is with the right to inspect. Some are written where the seller will do a certain percentage of repairs prior to closing based on the purchase price. So in other words, take a $400,000 house. It's got leaky plumbing, a leaky toilet, air conditioner's not working right. If it's as is with the right to inspect, the buyer has the right to walk away from the contract. Most of the ones that are written are for any reason whatsoever within a certain period of days. if it says the seller will pay up to 1% of the purchase price, and on a $400,000 house, it's $4,000, the seller will be obligated to get the property repaired to, if it's the air conditioner, repaired or replaced in the manner in which it was designed to operate. So in other words, now sometimes on air conditioners, a perfect example, home inspectors will say it's not working in the proper temperature range. And I'll get an air conditioning guy out there who said, it's working fine, okay? But sometimes it really just needs a cleaning. Who's responsible for cleaning? That's one of those gray areas, and generally a cleaning doesn't mean the thing's not working correctly. So that's one of those, you know, you need to have a judgment call on there. But generally, the seller cleaning for an AC unit is about $150. I usually recommend the seller do it if that's all there is. So there are some gray areas, and that's, again, these are the kind of issues that I run into all the time after we sell the house, and sometimes it's just working everybody through it to make sure we get to the closing. Are there any particular Tampa neighborhoods that have safety concerns? That I don't know. You'd have to really check with police records. I'm sure they have areas that they blacklist or red list or do whatever. It's none of the areas that I work in, so I just don't know what areas would have safety concerns and would not want to address those issues at this point. What resources can I use in order to stay on top of the market changes in the Tampa area? I think there's a couple of great ways. Realtor.com is just follow what's happening in the listings. Talk to a good real estate agent. I send out a newsletter that goes out all the time. I send out, I have 20,000 market trends that I send out once a quarter. Keeps everybody up with what's happening in their neighborhood at any given time. Some of the other websites that are out there are really good to follow. You can just kind of track the trends. If you're honing in on a specific neighborhood, I'm going to say Realtor.com is probably one of the best ways to follow it. You can track the trends, and I like Realtor.com because their statistics are a little more valid than some of the other sites that I've seen. And everything that's in Realtor.com is run by the MLS system, so that's who actually owns it. Are there any long-term consequences of having a home stay unsold on the market for an extended period of time? This is kind of a repeat of what I had said earlier. People look at, I was showing houses yesterday, people moving back they moved from here to Virginia, now they're moving back. They saw a price was reduced on a home and they go, this house has been on the market for 120 days. What's wrong with it? Candidly, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just been on the market for 120 days. Why? Because it was $45,000 more expensive before. But mentally they're going, there's something wrong with it. Which means the price gets lower to begin with. So in other words, instead of selling it up here, where you could have when you first started, you're selling it down here when it really should have been right about there to begin with. So that's the problem with not pricing it right. And it's very hard because everybody thinks the most of their house and they think everybody's going to negotiate a whole lot when, as I said earlier, you're looking at 2.5% is my median negotiation off the original list price. That's not much. That means on $300,000, you're negotiating less than $10,000 on all of these. So my brother-in-law wants to help me sell my home, but he's not licensed. Are there any legal requirements he should be aware of? If he's helping you and he's really being in the capacity of a real estate agent, he needs to have a valid real estate license. Also, most of my issues come up after we've sold the home. I mean, I can market it, and I'm really good at that. We do a great job of getting it sold. Keeping it sold in a market where price appreciation has gone through the roof like this, and buyer's income hasn't done this. This is kind of what I had talked about earlier. It's very hard to keep everybody together, and it's a mix of psychological skills, legal skills, just staying on top of it, communicating well. There's a lot of issues that come in after the fact. I'm dealing with insurance. I'm dealing with inspections. I'm dealing with appraisers. These are the kind of things that your brother-in-law can't help you, but he can probably advise you on certain things. But from a legal point of view, he really needs to have a real estate license. I recently discontinued working with a realtor because he refused to negotiate his fees. Is it standard practice for real estate agents to not negotiate compensation? I really can't discuss what anybody else does about compensation. Some, I'm sure, can all fees are negotiable. the best agents that I found really earn their keep. Like I just said a minute ago, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that if you're selling or buying, you will never see. You think you made an offer on a house, you put the down payment, you talk to a mortgage company, you put your house up for sale, you got an offer to sell. That's it. Trust me, there's a reason that it takes 30 to 45 to 60 days to close after we go to contract. There's a lot of stuff that goes in between, and some of it's, like I said, a mix of psychological, legal, the whole bit. So the best agents are going to get paid for what they do. So in what scenario would be most beneficial to buy rather than rent? If you're only going to live in the area for a couple of years, I always recommend, I would recommend renting. But the problem with renting is you can't do what you want to the house. If you're going to be here 4 or 5 years, I mean, if the market, I can't predict future markets, but if I were to get rid of, the years 2003 to 2013, the market was really pretty stable. You're looking at appreciation going up 3 to 4% per year across the board from 1980 through 2003, and now it's coming back to stable with a little bit higher growth. So in other words, let's say that you could buy a house right now for $300,000. With interest rates, you're probably paying a little less than you would for rent, and you're going to get, you're going to get to live there and do what you want, and appreciation is going to be roughly, let's call it $15,000 a year for the next 5 years. So $300,000 a year compounded, it's worth $400,000 in 5 years. If you rent that amount of time, you want to get back in the market, you haven't saved any equity, and now you're trying to buy a house for $400,000 that you could have already owned. So that's the kind of thing to look at. Again, if you're only going to be there 2 years, it's expensive to sell and it can be expensive to buy. How do I know if a seller is being honest about the history of the home? All sellers have to fill out a property disclosure. I recommend that everyone, and I mean everyone, get a home inspection. Use somebody that's dependable. Don't just hire a licensed contractor. Ask the qualifications of, has the guy done a lot of home inspections in the last 30 to 45 days? How many does he do a week? That's a great question to ask. What are the kind of things that he looks for when he's on a home inspection? Every home inspector's got certain things that they look for. I have one home inspector that looks mostly at roofs. Now he'll look at everything, but roofs are his big thing. I have another guy that looks at electrical. I have another guy that really follows the AC and the plumbing. So they're all supposed to get it all, but some have certain things that they look at more. But if they do a lot of home inspections, they're going to find the stuff that comes up on a regular basis. You don't want to get a home inspector that does one a month or just got started in the business. You're never going to catch everything. If a seller really wants to hide it, he can probably hide it. A lot of stuff will come up with title searches. A lot of stuff will come up with home inspections. And some of it you can just see. Go ask the neighbors if you have any concerns. Good rule of thumb, though, and this is when I was with a couple yesterday, houses that look really good, clean, neat, we knew we weren't going to have any real problems because they've all done the nice stuff in the meantime. So that's really a good rule of thumb when you're looking at a house. Now, so that was all the time I've got for today. Remember, this is Joe Lewkowicz with Coldwell Banker, and we do this the second Thursday of every month. Send me any questions that you've got. Feel free to type in and be looking forward to talking with you. Take care.